Prabhupada. I don't know, maybe I won't even speak too much about Srila Prabhupada. I'm not sure what I'm going to say. For me, Prabhupada's disappearance day is a day I wish didn't exist. It was a day that I wish never happened, and therefore on this day I don't like it. So it's not one of my favorite days. When His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj wrote his book, The Last Pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, there was in the beginning somebody coming in and objecting, and that person was actually me. He wrote later on, he told me that I was the model for that person. What do we need to know about final pastimes of Srila Prabhupada? Isn't it better if we just concentrate on what he did? Of course, Prabhupada's leaving this body was exemplary. He was so detached from the body that he gave up eating completely. He didn't even want to drink anything to maintain this body. He felt that Krishna was giving him indication that it was time to leave. So he simply prepared himself accordingly. But even just a few months before, he had been preaching with great enthusiasm and great determination to many important people, to the people in general, to the devotees, about Krishna consciousness. This is the most wonderful thing, I think, about Srila Prabhupada, is that he was constantly engaged in preaching. He used to spend all of his time preaching. Very much less of his time was used in managerial concerns, and even that often would give him a headache. But most of his time he spent in preaching. That did not mean that he did not get involved in managerial concerns. He did, but he didn't like it. He wanted that his leaders would take over the management of the society and leave him to write his books and preach, which was his main love. Everybody has their own inclination. We all have inclinations, things that we'd rather do if we had a choice. And in Srila Prabhupada's case, there was no doubt whatsoever that his inclination was to preach widely throughout the world and to write his books. He actually had plans to finish the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. After the 9th canto was over, he had even thought of jumping to the 11th and 12th cantos and then going back to the 10th canto, which he didn't do. He continued straight through after the 9th canto to the 10th canto. But Prabhupada's main love was to write these books, because these books they are eternal knowledge. They're knowledge which will last. Something we say now, maybe somebody will appreciate now. But when it is in the form of a book, it is something which is eternal. Especially if the books can be reprinted. Of course, the Vedic literatures is eternal, but they were not put in a book form until something little less than 5,000 years ago by Srila Vyasadeva. But now that it is established in the book form, it is standard and is not going to be lost, so long as there is the ability to print books. I see These books are so important that even if something happens to the whole technology of book printing, we should at least copy them over again for future generations. These books are so important. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Devotion. These are our main books. And Srila Prabhupada has given his whole life, all the knowledge that he has accumulated throughout his life, with substantial knowledge, he is putting in these books. And when you read these books, you will realize that Srila Prabhupada has never left, because he's still living through his purports. Therefore, I like very much every day to read Prabhupada's books, because he's still there. You can still associate with him through his books. It is not possible now to associate Prabhupada with Prabhupada through his vapu, his bodily form, because that bodily form has left. So it is not possible. No matter how you wish to change it, it is not possible. That form left on this very day 19 years ago. And unfortunately, nothing we can do, or no matter how many tears we cry, or how much we lament, that will never change. Prabhupada has left us, and he has left us with a wealth of information. Actually, there are, almost 40 conversations books, just books of Prabhupada speaking. Then there are so many lectures, thousands of lectures of Prabhupada speaking the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And his books. The most important of all things are the books, because Prabhupada specifically wrote them in such a way that everybody can understand them, yet the greatest knowledge that is coming down in our disciplic succession is available both through the original text, which is coming in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, coming down from Lord Krishna himself, or from great saints and saintly personalities. And Srila Prabhupada has commented liberally on all of these things, all of these verses. And you can associate with him directly by reading these purports. Prabhupada said that. It is not my opinion. Of course, it's also my opinion. I agree with that completely. But he said that I shall never die, I shall live forever in my purports. That's wonderful. And even now, we can have great association with Srila Prabhupada through these books. I have seen new devotees who have never seen Srila Prabhupada. They are reading his books. They are watching his videos. They are hearing his lectures. It is the same. After all, most devotees in ISKCON didn't have much association with Srila Prabhupada. Some devotees only saw Prabhupada at their first initiation, or maybe at their second initiation, if they had one. I remember in my case, I saw Prabhupada at my first initiation, but not my second initiation. There were some of my godbrothers I know never saw Srila Prabhupada. And in those days, we hardly had any lectures of Srila Prabhupada available because there were no cassette tapes. There were only reel-to-reel tapes. And they were not, Prabhupada's lectures were not distributed. Up until 1976, cassette tapes were not utilized widely. They were such lousy quality that they were hardly usable. So there were no ways to distribute Prabhupada's lectures very easily. So no, we weren't listening to Prabhupada's lectures. All we had was some books, and not even all the books. So some people, they had very little contact with Srila Prabhupada. But nowadays we're so lucky. We all have the possibility to contact Srila Prabhupada through not only his books, but his lectures, his conversations, his morning walks. We're more aware now of what Srila Prabhupada has left us than we were when he was here on the planet. Usually he would give a lecture, somebody would tape record it, that tape would go away somewhere, and nobody would know about it anymore. Unless they happened to publish that tape, that lecture, in a little pamphlet. And I remember in 1971 when I was recording Srila Prabhupada, I sent all the tapes to Los Angeles, and they foolishly used the tapes to record something else. So therefore you don't find lectures from Srila Prabhupada in 1971. They didn't even realize what they were doing. So foolish. But now, many scholars have also said this. This is the first time in history that a religious movement has been so carefully documented. So carefully documented. We know basically, just like Prabhupada's Lilamrita, 6-7 volumes of detailed accounts of Srila Prabhupada's life. Now Srila Bhakti True Swami is making this wonderful video of Prabhupada. You've seen that? You've seen it? It's so incredible. And there are going to be many, many of those coming out. Can't wait. After the first one, I was so disappointed that there wasn't a second one. Left with Bhakti Vinod Thakur there with the book. So, we have enormous wealth of information. But the thing is that even if there's an enormous wealth of information, you've got to get the message and the mission of Srila Prabhupada very clear. Srila Prabhupada wanted that all of his devotees shall take up the work of spreading this Krishna consciousness movement. In the last years of his life, he especially spoke this again and again. He wanted that all of his disciples should spread this Krishna consciousness movement far and wide. He always used to tell people that I am selling books $60,000 a day. Now, in those days, that was 6 lakhs of rupees. The rupee was much more valuable than it is nowadays. Nowadays, that's 23 or 24 lakhs of rupees. But in those days, 6 lakhs of rupees was really something. A day! $60,000 a day. And exactly at the right time, he sanctioned, now the karma will come. Material desires are your problem, not the super souls. But he also fulfills those desires in due course of time when your karma allows. No, material modes of nature are also under the super soul's control.
One may have had a wrong desire while being in Vrindavan. Is there any way to withdraw it?
Yes, you have to have strong desire that for the right thing. Very strong desire for the right thing. Otherwise, you will have big trouble, yes. Very strong desire. But it has to be really strong. yes, then the spiritual body manifests, and the spiritual body acts on the spiritual platform.
The dharma of jivas is to serve the Lord. What is the dharma of Krishna?
Krishna is Dharma. He doesn't have Dharma. Dharma antu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Whatever Dharma there is, it comes from Krishna. All religious principles come from Krishna. Anything Krishna does, anything Krishna says, anything Krishna wants, that's Dharma.
The pure liberated soul is therefore full of knowledge and does know that when she wants to enjoy Maya, she will suffer and will cause Krishna also anxiety. So why does it anyway desire it?
Foolishness.
So pure soul is foolish. It can be foolish.
That's why you're here in the material world. All us are fools. We're all fools. Whole world full of fools. But amongst those foolish persons, there's a few who are not so foolish. And they're sitting in this room. Therefore, they don't cause Krishna pain. Because their natural knowledge has awakened. But the others are foolish. Therefore, they cannot understand.
This statement that you said that you cannot even move our
Not a blade of grass will move without the sanction of the Lord.
also, and especially what I meant is the eyelids, you cannot move them without there's a demigod or someone who is in charge of it. So I can't understand how actually every move of the eyelids of every living entity, someone.
A demigod is in charge of setting up the system such that the eyelid will move. And it's not that the demigod is sitting there and making your eyes go up and down. He sets up the system by which that energy causes it to occur.
Some days ago that a very advanced devotee followed one devotee of Vrindavan. I want to know what are the external, are there
Externally, one goes on performing devotional service in the same way as one had done before, but within the mind, one is thinking of the activities of the advanced devotee, and at the same time there are also literatures by the Goswamis and others who help us to concentrate our minds on the activities of the advanced devotees that we are worshipping and following. And in this way we get help through those literatures. Air, where there's the air, he's conscious. Varuna, the water, where there's the water, he's conscious.
And when some
Surya, the sun, Chandra, the moon, same.
and how they know when some people
Yamaraj, he's like the super soul. He knows what's in the hearts of all the living entities because he's keeping track of what you're doing.
and what if somebody starts to worship some demigods, how they know that this person worships me?
Oh, they know because when they do the demigod worship, they're chanting the mantras of the demigods with the name of the demigod. And the sound vibration connects with the demigod. And he becomes aware of what you're doing. Sound vibration, very powerful. Especially you do it through the Vedic literatures. And there are mantras, and then you can understand. Krishna is empowering everybody, demigod, demon, all. They all get their energy from Krishna.
They are against Krishna.
Yes, he gives them the strength to fight against him. Like he gives them the knowledge by which they can forget him. He gives them the ability to hate him. They want that, and they accept that, and then they act on that. But it's coming from Krishna. You can't avoid Krishna.